My name is Drew Waldron, and I am on with author and creator of The Hero Effect, Kevin Brown. Kevin, it's great to sit down with you.
Hey, Drew, it's great to see you.
So, you have a very long career that is beyond impressive, and I think the best place to start is you just explaining what your career is to people who may not have heard of you.
Yeah, so I'm a motivational speaker by accident. I spent 32 years in the franchise world, had a career that I loved very much, and thought I would do that for the rest of my career. But sometimes life has other plans for us. And this idea called the hero effect, started to take root in my heart and my life. And before I knew it, it took on a life of its own, and people were inviting me to speak. And I retired at the end of 2016 from my corporate life. And since then, we've done around 900 events, literally around the world, taking this message and this story to every kind of organization that you can imagine.
Wow. And The Hero Effects, it's more than just your book, it is your personal philosophy.
Yeah.
For someone who might be unfamiliar with the term, what is the hero effect in that context? And what was the origin of the hero effect?
The hero effect in its most purest form is being your best when it matters the most. And I can't think of any role, any circumstance, any situation in life where that does not apply. Being your best when it matters the most. And honestly, this really started with a question. I was asked to speak to 2,000 people. And back then, when I was asked to do that, my speaking career was leadership, vision, communication, customer service, all of the usual things that we hear when we listen to speakers. And this particular group, 2,000 people, entrepreneurs, highly successful, their committee and I met 3 months before the event. And the committee chairwoman said to me, she said, Kevin, we don't want a stock speech. We don't want to hear about leadership, vision, communication, or customer service. And quite frankly, I got a little bit nervous. I said, what is it that you want me to talk about? And she said, we're not entirely sure. She said, but what I can tell you is the people that you're going to be talking to are hardworking people. They show up every single day and they pour the best of themselves into their communities, the people they serve, their teammates. In fact, a lot of our customers consider them to be heroes. And when she used the word heroes, I wrote it down, circled it, underlined it. And I said, how about this? What if I give a speech about what it means to be a hero, to bring the best version of you to this tiny space called now and pour it into the people you serve and serve with, to be a hero at work and at home? And she said, Kevin, if you could do that, you would be our hero. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. She got up and left the room. I completely freaked out, had a meltdown because I didn't have a hero speech. So I had 3 months, Drew, to get ready for this speech. No idea what I was going to talk about. And when I don't know what to do, I go to the smartest person I know, and that's my wife, Lisa. And I went to her and said, honey, I've got 3 months to get ready for 2,000 people. They want me to talk about heroes. I don't have a hero speech. And she said something that was profound. She said, let me ask you a question. When you look in the mirror, do you see yourself, or do you see all of the people who helped you become you? The people who picked you up when life knocked you down, the people who loved you when you were unlovable, the people who gave you things that you didn't have on your own. She said, if you don't see those faces, you're missing the picture completely. And that's where this whole thing started. It started with that one question: what does a hero look like? And as I stood there looking in the mirror that day, I started to see the faces of all of the teachers, the influencers, the mentors, the old bosses, the people who had poured into my life and took me places I could have never gotten to. And that was where I started. And I started asking anybody who would listen that one question: what does a hero look like? And I heard about our military personnel all over the world. I heard about world changers, Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., first responders. I heard about doctors and nurses, moms and dads, all the categories of heroes that you could imagine. And every single person that I've asked the question, what does a hero look like? They said heroes are ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And at first I thought, yep, that's it. That sounds right to me. And I wrote it down, and that's what I started to work with. And about a year into this hero's journey that I've been on, I realized that that was wrong. Because if we buy into that definition of a hero, we have to first convince ourselves that we're ordinary in the first place. And that's when we flipped the script. We flipped it, and we now believe that heroes are extraordinary people who choose not to be ordinary. We believe that ordinary is a choice, and it's a choice that far too many people make. And when I got that, everything on this journey began to change. People started to buy into what we were doing. They started to plug into our content. And all of a sudden, I was getting invited all over the world to share this story.
That's an amazing origin. And I'm sure that as someone who speaks about heroics all the time, you're constantly asked who your own personal heroes are. Now, I'm going to ask that exact same question to you.
Yeah, it's a great question because I've spent the last 15 years asking that question and looking introspectively into my own life and saying, how did I actually get here? Because the hero's journey is not alone. We don't do this by ourselves. It's not done in a vacuum. And so I have to start with my family. My wife is one of the greatest heroes I have ever known. She has been by my side for 27 years. I do everything she tells me to do because I'm afraid she might leave. And she is the smartest person I know. I too have to add my son to that. I have an amazing son. His name is Josh. And Josh has autism. He's 26 years old. He's a remarkable young man. When he was 5 years old, the experts told us that he wouldn't graduate high school, he wouldn't go to college. And he did both of those things because I have a heroic wife and I have a son who's willing to buy into her vision and not the expert's vision. It's amazing to me, Drew, that when somebody is 5 years old, will try to cast a vision for their entire life, what they will do, won't do, what they'll become. And it reminds me of what Les Brown used to say. Les Brown used to say, someone's opinion of you does not have to become your destiny. And in that moment, my wife took that vision that they were casting for our son and she rewrote it. She knew instinctively that the vision that was being cast for our son was not his destiny. And then she went to work. She gave up her career. She started learning about autism. She started learning about how this kid processes information. And she was by his side until he walked across that stage and got his diploma and then went off to college. And those are two remarkable examples of humans in my life that became heroes to me. And one of the greatest heroes is a mentor of mine. His name is David. I've been homeless more than once. I was betrayed by an adult as a young man. Predator invaded my world and my life started to spiral out of control. And if not for this gentleman named David, who literally got me off the streets and helped me overcome some habits and addictions that were very destructive in my life, I wouldn't have had the career that I had. I wouldn't have the life that I have if it wasn't for that hero who showed up in my darkest hour.
That is unbelievable. Both your own personal story and your son's story and your wife's story. You are surrounded by heroes.
That's
Uh,
a fact.
Absolutely. When I was researching your work, there was a phrase that I kept running into, which is, we have to move people to move mountains. Now, what does that phrase mean to you and the work that you do?
I think we're all climbing a mountain. I think we're all trying to get somewhere. We're all trying to overcome something. I have a great friend of mine. He's a behavioral psychologist. He said, everyone is suffering and nobody wants to. And two dominant areas where they suffer is I'm not enough and I don't have enough. And taken, in the context of my life, I was trying to climb a mountain. I was at rock bottom and I was trying to climb my way out. And I had mentors and heroes around me helping me make this climb. And I think now as a motivational speaker, my greatest responsibility, my greatest calling is to help people move the mountains that are in their life so that they can become everything that they were designed to be, so that they can step into their potential and into their destiny and start to overcome those things that have held them back. In the hero world, in Superman's world, it would have been kryptonite, right? Those mountains it's the kryptonite that robs us of our power, it steals our joy, and it keeps us from living our true potential. And so, in the classic sense of being a motivator, to be an inspiring storyteller, I use the worst of my life to help people bring out the best in theirs and to prove to them that this guy who has won no Super Bowls, has no Olympic medals, hasn't climbed anything other than the corporate ladder, that you can get there from here, right? That everyday people with the extraordinary capacity to be amazing in their work and in their life can get there from here, that it's not impossible, that it's not undoable, that they most certainly can climb that mountain and they don't have to do it alone.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the corporate ladder, because my next question to you is about when you speak to corporate audiences. Now, when you do speak to corporate audiences, one of the things you talk about is creating a culture of heroes. Now, for someone who is starting from step one, how do you create a culture of heroes?
But first of all, the culture is everybody's responsibility. Culture is one of those things that we talk about in the corporate world that it's like trying to catch smoke. Everybody talks about it, but very few people actually understand it. It's really about creating an environment. In sports, we call it the locker room. At home, we call it the dinner table. It could be a classroom. In the corporate construct, we talk about what is this feeling? What is this vibe? What is this thing that we've plugged into? If it's an environment where I am empowered, it's an environment where I matter. If it's an environment where I am seen, a lot of leaders miss this. A lot of leaders feel like they have to have all the answers. A lot of leaders think they have to be the smartest person in the room. And the truth of the matter is, the smartest person in the room is the person who brings the smartest people into the room and asks them really good questions. See, I don't think leaders have to have all the answers. Their people, their teammates have all the answers already, but they have to be empowered to share them with us. They have to know that their input matters, that we value them and that we see them. And when you start to build a culture like that, you're really building a culture of trust. You're building a culture of a safe space where people are free to win. People fail, people fall down, people are broken, people get back up. all of those things, because we're in this together. Whether you view this as a team, whether you view it as a family, that's a matter of opinion. But the truth is, we're all people, we're all humans, and we're all struggling in our lives. We're all searching for something more. We all want to get better. And if we can do that together, if we can create an environment that is safe, that is meaningful, that is worthwhile, that we're making a difference in the world and not just chasing the bottom line, but perhaps a through line, I think that's when people get excited about going to work every day with an organization committed to helping them become a better version of themselves, to serving people at a high level, to doing things that matter, to make life better. After all, that's all heroes do. They just make life better. They remove stress and they solve problems. And when people feel good about the work they do, when they feel good about themselves when they're doing that work, I think that's the very foundation of a culture that drives organizational excellence and customer loyalty.
Absolutely. Kevin, it's been fantastic to sit down and interview you. We have time for one more question. We always end on a question like this. Feel free to answer it however you'd like. What advice do you have for young people?
Be open. Be open. When I was young and I was going through all the garbage I went through in my life, I left for school when I was in the ninth grade. I packed a duffel bag full of everything I owned, and I left for school, and I never went home again. I used to sleep in hospital waiting rooms. I used public restrooms to get ready every morning, all dressed up, nowhere to go, and ended up living in a car. I said earlier, homeless more than once. And at that point in my life, I was so closed off to ideas. I was so closed off to mentorship. I was so closed off to ideas that could have moved me from where I was to someplace new, that could have helped me move that mountain that I was facing. And if I had to do it all over again, if I was going to talk to my younger self, I wouldn't have been so jaded and angry at the world for the circumstances I found myself in. I would have instead been more open to ideas that could have helped me accelerate the process of getting better. Because the truth is, getting better is my responsibility. And nothing in my life got better until I got better. Nothing improved until I improved. I didn't make more money until I became more valuable. And so if there's any advice I can give to our younger teammates, the people that are starting their careers, that are growing, that are out there, that are hungry, be open, be open. Don't lose sight of humanity. Don't lose sight of the wisdoms of the generation, the wisdom of generations that have gone before us. We all need each other. And we all have value, and we all have something meaningful to contribute to this world, to this planet, to each other, and to leave a mark that cannot be erased.
I love that. Be open because being jaded is far too easy. Well, that will conclude our conversation with Kevin Brown. Kevin, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. Have an awesome day.